Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where we have a very juicy conversation ahead of us. Oh boy! Plenty of hard truths, or should I say, hard lessons. Yes, Hollywood finds itself in summer school this weekend, hopefully learning some valuable lessons. So many times, Hollywood is sitting there looking at the lesson board, but yet they seem to not be paying attention. Why not? Why not? The lessons are right there. All right, so what are some of those lessons? And of course, as always, I'd be curious to hear your own thoughts down below. But I see it as the first lesson is there's still money in books, baby. And as progressive as Hollywood tries to be, it seems that when it comes to female moviegoers at large, the stereotypes of what they like are still true. Then, next up, the theatrical release is not dead. As long as you have IP, and you respect that IP. Oh, we're going to break these down. And then Hollywood, third lesson, has also tried very hard to be progressive by casting older, celebrated actresses, Oscar winners, in the lead roles for Borderlands. But audiences didn't just not care. They were highly offended. Again, even though Blanchett and Curtis are Oscar-winning actresses. Get them out of my video game adaptation! Was the rallying cry. Speaking of IP-based content that respects the source material, it's official! Deadpool and Wolverine is a billion-dollar movie. The second of the year, both from Disney. Oh, that's gotta frost some of your cookies. So, what a weekend for the mouse, by the way. D23, I was up till like 3 or 4 in the morning on both nights, because what a party! And it generated a plethora of headlines. And Bob Iger got a king's welcome on Friday night. It was amazing. And his heir apparent, Josh D'Amaro was one of 3 finalists. What a reality show that would make. One of 3, they could put it on Disney Plus. One of 3 finalists to take over for Bob Iger. And D'Amaro last night set the stage on fire after way too much singing, but he nailed it at the end with his theme park presentation. In fact, on Wednesday's earnings call, and with this weekend at D23, Disney made it clear that these days, they're the house that IP has built, and nobody does it better. Plus, they're turning Walt Disney into an animatronic. Forget till you're 90, Hugh Jackman. You'll be doing this for eternity. I wonder if maybe some celebrities might want to start putting a no animatronic clause in their contract if they feel it might creep them out a little bit. I don't know. Again, we talked about it on the live stream last night, but I'm still not sure if that's like fitting, right? Or like a Twilight Zone episode. All right, so on that note, while Bob Iger might still be the king of Disney and potentially Hollywood, I think you could argue that, at least for the time being, with all the win that he's experiencing, this weekend, the king and queen of the box office are Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. Underscoring that while Deadpool and Wolverine is a Disney win, it's also a Ryan Reynolds win. And he's becoming his own force in Hollywood as well. Certainly this summer, just look at that. He has If, Deadpool and Wolverine, and now it ends with Us, where he became a major creative force along with Lively behind the scenes. A lot of controversy erupted over the weekend, with fans wondering why director and star Justin Baldoni, who most of us never heard of before, he's coming and going real fast. Why he's been ostracized by his co-stars, not just on social media, but also on the press tour. Nobody was willing to even stand next to this guy. Plus, Baldoni gave an interview saying that obviously at this point, when they make the sequel, maybe it's time for Blake Lively to direct. Great idea, says Hollywood. I don't know what's happening here, and I don't know if Baldoni is being passive-aggressive or just a realist. But I do know that Hollywood isn't going to care. There's money here. And as always, Hollywood will follow the path of least resistance and highest profit. Especially since fans still showed up in droves for the movie, and Baldoni has no real weight in Hollywood, while of course, Lively and Reynolds do. Who is Baldoni? Well, I Googled him. He's a CW actor who's directed a few small films on the outskirts of Hollywood. And to his credit, brilliantly identified Colleen Hoover's 2016 novel as a potential box office winner and secured the rights in 2019 as Hollywood fell in love with comic books and video games and felt the dramas were dead at the multiplex and therefore fell asleep on the book front. But it seems, for reasons unknown, again, he's not going to be able to hold on to this franchise. Perhaps he can stay on behind the scenes as a producer. At least pay him his money, because Lively, Reynolds, and Sony, again, will definitely want to adapt that sequel. This is a big win for Lively, who hasn't had a box office hit since The Shallows. Although, to be fair, she has spent a lot of the last few years focusing on family. It Ends With Us has a lot of similarities, actually, to the soap opera-esque series that made her a household name in the first place, Gossip Girl. Also based on a series of books, by the way. Ooh, a pattern emerges! We're not even done. Wait till you see this. And it's smart that Lively and Reynolds have figured out her brand, what her brand is, right? I'd say it's very, flowery, lavish, very female-friendly book adaptations. I mean, you can see the similarities between It Ends With Us and Gossip Girl. So critics didn't love the film, but fans sure did. Female fans specifically, with audiences 84% women. 84%. Fascinatingly, Barbie was just, in comparison, 68% female. And this is closer to 50 Shades of, although Barbie also had a bigger opening weekend, and it makes you wonder how much Ryan Gosling, another Ryan, contributed there. But anyway, this is closer to 50 Shades of Grey, which was very close at 82% female. That hit with 93 million because that was brilliantly paired with Valentine's Day. Twilight, by the way, in case you're wondering, was 75% female with its opening weekend box office. And like horror films, these romance adaptations are very inexpensive. Oh, it's all gravy, baby. I mean, you would think I'm sure Hollywood executives and the like are salivating at these kind of returns. So why doesn't Hollywood make more of these? They're churning out horror movies every weekend. Well, I think it might have something to do with the fact that there are far less female executives, producers, and filmmakers. Isn't that fascinating? Because don't forget, in the small screen space, Shonda Rhimes has built an empire with such content. What did Bridgerton start out as? A book series. Oh my God! If I were, obviously I'm a female creator, but if I was a male executive or studio head, if I was Mr. Bob Iger, I'd be like, I think I need a female executive who's going to be in charge, although to his credit, Justin Baldoni was the one who identified this book. But I'd be like, I'm going to make someone work it for me whose directive it is to follow this space, because there's money there. There's money there. Oh, fascinating. Fascinating. Although I'm sure Shonda Rhimes is like, ixnay on telling everybody my secret formula nay. All right, so not only is this a big win for Lively and Reynolds, but Jenny Slate will surely get a boost out of this. Perhaps, I think she was great in the film. I did see it. I'll talk to you about it in a moment. But Jenny Slate, I think, will probably be able to parlay this into either a streaming lead, an ensemble role in a streaming show, or maybe more best friend roles in movies. But Brendan Sklenar, this is who I would choose to level up. He comes from the Yellowstone franchise. I was like, where's this guy been? He's been in Yellowstone. Not even the main one, the 1923 one. And Glenn Powell rejected the Chris Pratt mantle. He thinks he's too good for it. Well, I'd say, hey, Sklenar, you want it? We'll talk about Glenn Powell and Twisters in a few moments. I think Glenn Powell should have taken the mantle. But anyway, as I said, I did see It Ends With Us. I saw it on Thursday night. 'Twas not for me. But I don't, it's a weird space these days to be a critic. But I ultimately decided not to review it. I did not care for the film myself, but I must say that my audience was going absolutely crazy over it. My audience was oohing and ahhing and skewing, squeeing, I guess is the right way to put it. It was amazing. It was an amazing movie-going experience. It was mostly women. And I looked around being like, are people enjoying this movie? And I saw women around me smiling ear to ear, which was fascinating. Also, I saw them taking their pictures with the poster on the way out. I mean, it was an event, which just goes to show how little some of these women go to the movies. It's like a big deal to go to the movies. Like, let's take our picture. And you're like, bitch, I'm here every week. And they're like, I go every couple of months, apparently. And you're like, how can we activate you more? Other franchises are trying. The Marvels. Ryan Reynolds tried to get more women to see Deadpool and Wolverine. Didn't work out too well for him. But again, this is a market I think Hollywood obviously is going to want a piece of. But anyway, while I was watching the movie, I was like, Sklinner, if I were a producer, if I were producing a project, I'd be like, yoink, that's who I want out of here. But a new superstar author has been born with Colleen Hoover, and she's got other book series, and sure enough, one of them, Regretting You, is already quickly coming together as a movie this weekend in the wake of It Ends With Us' success. Allison Williams and McKenna Grace, step on up. Allison Williams, of course, coming from a position of strength after Megan. She made a comeback. You never know in Hollywood. You never know. Now, while it was a great weekend for the book-to-movie space, video game adaptations were reminded of what it used to be like in Hollywood. Yes, Borderlands seemed cursed from the very first trailer drop, with its out-of-the-box casting choices and being labeled a Guardians of the Galaxy ripoff, which to some degree it is. This is how Hollywood used to make them. Specifically, Avi Arad, who it seems has not learned his lesson from Ghost in the Shell. How does he keep getting away with it? We're going to talk about that. Because Arad really is old school Hollywood, a producer who benefited from having his name on the early Marvel movies at Fox and Sony, and has been able to keep his name on the Sony Spider-Man films to this day. Some of them he produces, the bad ones, and some of them he executive produces, the better ones. But for better or worse, just when it seems his career will die, he gets a win that keeps him alive. Everybody just remembers your last movie. And sometimes you can just make them focus on your biggest one, because for some reason, Hollywood executives don't take their time to do their research. But yes, he's managed to keep his career alive in the same way that David Goyer and Akiva Goldsman have. Same club of like, how are you guys still working? Nintendo, why they're getting into business with Avi Arad, it's scary for Legend of Zelda. What? I mean, at least Wes Ball did a pretty good job with The Last Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. It didn't do as well as I would like for someone taking over such an amazing IP, but this is the team that Sony has assembled. We didn't assemble them. Heck no. Maybe the team at Nintendo maybe they're not big Hollywood fans. I forget it, in the video game space. There's this other video game creator who's like super into Hollywood. And he just got in with A24 because he does his work. He does his research. It's really interesting to see the video game space meld with Hollywood, particularly because they make so much money. Comic books, much smaller industry, so they can't really call too many shots. But video games have become so big at this point, it's weird to see them kind of try to coexist. It's very interesting. But I don't know why Nintendo, I guess, doesn't know Hollywood as well. And Sony, who clearly has a good relationship with Arad, because I guess they don't do their research into their own movies, must have just said, hey, Nintendo, he's associated with these older movies that he didn't really have much to do with, but his name's on them. And I guess that's how that came together. It is a conundrum. All right, so Cate Blanchett is an icon, and she was just having a good time. She'll be fine. But Jamie Lee Curtis, who was already in hot water with fans for winning Best Supporting Actress over Black Panther's Angela Bassett, and to make matters worse, that's just the way things went. I mean, that's not anything to do with Jamie Lee Curtis, but people were side-eyeing her because of that. And then on the Borderlands press tour, she decided to make a joke about Marvel that stung fans to such degree she had to publicly apologize. Thankfully, she has the new Freaky Friday movie coming up that just had a first look at D23, and I'm sure Disney has their fingers crossed, and I'm sure they're telling her, please don't continue to poke the bear. But Jamie Lee Curtis does have that Oscar, and she is Hollywood royalty, so she should be fine. But don't poke the bear anymore, Jamie. Kevin Hart will be fine too. He's a factory of content. This was just a Tuesday for him. Not all days of the week are winners, but I think by the end of the week, he is a winner, because again, he's just so prolific and he doesn't pretend to be anything else. Jack Black, though, many fans are very upset with how he handled the Tenacious D Kyle Gass situation. I mean, apologize? For sure. The comment went too far. But what fans are taking issue with is that Jack Black he had such a knee-jerk reaction that he decided to break up the band, canceling the tour as well, but really breaking up the band. And many fans are accusing him of abandoning a friend and collaborator that he's had for 30 plus years. What would you advise Jack Black to do at this point, and Jamie Lee Curtis? It's rough. It's rough. But bottom line, the person who's really going to take the hit for Borderlands is Mr. Eli Roth. Now, he was the major creative force behind the film, and despite making a name for himself in the horror space back in the day, his promise has just never materialized. Same with Tim Miller, although there are other comments about Tim Miller. But Tim Miller, he had an opportunity to rebound when Lionsgate asked him to try and save this movie, but he couldn't. So I think it's going to be very hard for either of these guys to get any major studio work going forward, at least as directors. Although, who knows? Apparently you can catch a studio executive on an up day when they're feeling all happy, and you can get them to sign on for anything. And speaking of lessons for Hollywood to learn, clearly fans and audiences overall have gotten smarter and their standards are higher. Make your jokes here. I'll talk about my review of the movie in a moment. If you watch my live stream from the other day, I think, it was on the Friday night live stream for the D23 Entertainment Showcase. I talk about a little bit in depth about what happened with my Rotten Tomatoes review. But anyway, fans, they just aren't going to go along with this anymore. This is just not how they want to see their IP adapted. Now, you might say, how do you explain Venom? That was truly a unicorn. And also, by the way, a trilogy that has not been able to make lightning strike again. So even the filmmakers who made the first Venom are like, we don't know how we did it. I think, here's the thing. I liked the first Venom. I didn't like the second Venom. We haven't seen the third Venom yet. But I liked the first Venom. I thought Borderlands was fine. I thought it was a popcorn flick. And I liked Uncharted, by the way. Now, I think where Borderlands differs from Venom and Uncharted is that Venom and Uncharted, even though they both also really annoyed fans, they had stars who were like at the top of their game at that time. I think Tom Hardy's star is diminished a little bit because of the Venom movies. So that's why Venom 3 is struggling now. But I think that, so maybe star power isn't totally dead. Like if Sydney Sweeney was in this exact same Borderlands movie, I gotta tell you, I think people would have been nicer to it. So I think that's really interesting. So next time you say stars are dead, not totally. All right, so yeah, and I totally believe that. If you just take the exact same movie and just swap in Sydney Sweeney, I think people would have been much, not only not cruel to the film, but maybe even a little nice to it. A little, how you doing across the bar or across the multiplex? All right, so yes, Deadpool and Wolverine is $1 billion movie, and it hasn't even slowed down yet. As I said last Sunday, it's basically got the entire month of August to just bank cash. How high will it go? We'll find out. It's only the second R-rated film to ever join the $1 billion club after Joker, and it's the first X-Men film to do so. That's amazing. I hope the X-Men are just getting started. And the MCU's 11th. Kevin Feige's like, whew. Although, don't rest on your laurels, Kevin Feige. It's been a minute. And of course, it puts Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, and director Sean Levy in the $1 billion club as well. Usually it's all about IP getting in there. So it's very special when talent can really, be the ones that are responsible for getting in there as well. Just like it was special when Tom Cruise and Will Smith finally got into the $1 billion club. But on that note, it doesn't make you invulnerable. Tom Cruise and Will Smith are, their career's a little wonky right now. And then also, just ask Johnny Depp. I mean, that guy helped found the $1 billion club. And of course, his career is not going, it's real bad. All right, so as for the rest of the top 10, as I said, speaking of careers, maybe Powell should have gone after the Chris Pratt mantle. He's trying to be the new Tom Cruise, but I think he's the new Chris Pratt. Oh, I said Kevin Costner. He's all over the place. I think for some reason Glenn Powell thinks he's an artist. Who's going to tell him? All right, so anyway, in fact, Twisters is a Chris Pratt kind of role. Yet Powell turned down, also from Universal, starring in the new Jurassic franchise. I think that was a big mistake. I think he's going to look back and be like, that might have been a pivotal moment. That might have been a nexus point for him. Because he hasn't solidified his stardom just yet. Twisters is doing very well it's doing well domestically, but look at those international numbers. Whew! Did the Olympics KO Twisters? I mean, Speaking of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom came out the same. I think all the Jurassic movies, to some degree, have had to contend with the Olympics. But what's happened is that they've opened like really ridiculously early overseas, like in early June. But they didn't do that with Twisters. And then also, of course, it opened the weekend before Deadpool and Wolverine. Speaking of being like Tom Cruise, remember what happened to him last year with Barbenheimer? Pal might be a little bit more like Tom Cruise than he wants to be. The 1996 movie has done better than Twisters, and that's $1996. We'll see how Twisters does on digital, where it drops this Tuesday. But another Universal movie, Despicable Me 4, hit digital just this past week, yet it's still doing very well at the box office, falling just 30% in its 6th weekend. So Twisters might start making money in 2 areas. While Inside Out 2 is also continuing to hold up incredibly well. Inside Out 2 did just announce its own digital release, not Disney Plus. They still haven't announced that yet, but it'll hit digital, or you got to pay for it to own it or rent it, August 20th. 2 of the biggest drops this weekend were last weekend's new releases, making it pretty clear that M. Night Shyamalan and Zachary Levi, speaking of careers, well, theirs are in pretty bad shape. I think Josh Hartnett will be fine, though. I'm still excited about Josh Hartnett's comeback. There's just a little bump in the road. He might be like, you looking for new Chris Pratts? And wow, look at Longlegs, that horror genre. 71 million, not as high as Smile. They started out on the same level, but Smile got over the century mark. But still, for a movie that most people in fact say is pretty bad, 71 million is amazing. People are saying Cuckoo isn't very good, but that didn't make any money. Interesting. That's too bad for Hunter Schafer. I hope she has an opportunity to recover. Over on streaming, rejoice, House of the Dragon fans, you're number 1! I know a lot of House of the Dragon fans take that show's performance very seriously, although I have a hard truth for you. Because what was the episode that did it? Rook's Rest with, what do you know, dragon fighting! That just proves, I think, that spectacle is an important, crucial part of this franchise's success. Sure, you want all the other elements, but this is what really lights a fire under the audience. So whether you like it or not, hardcore Game of Thrones fans who like to yell at us every week. All right, so The Boys is also still going very strong this week, which was its second to last episode of the current season. Big, massive hit. Couldn't have happened to a better franchise. I'm so happy for that franchise. They have only one more season to go, but they have spin-offs aplenty. They're going to keep it going. I wonder what's going to happen to Anthony Starr. There are some streaming actors that do such an incredible job that I don't understand why they aren't able to make the leap to the next level. Anthony Starr is definitely one of them. Although I guess he's so synonymous with Homelander at this point. But still. All right, so anyway, Beverly Hills Cop, it lost more than half of its audience. And it's, because that last week was the long holiday 4th of July weekend where apparently everybody streamed Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. This weekend, less than half the viewership, but it's still the top movie and the only one to make the overall chart. Although The Bear fell off the overall chart in its 3rd week, but it's still high up on the originals chart, while The Acolyte still can't even make the originals chart. Even Stranger Things reruns are doing better. That's how low the bar is on the originals chart. And this was, by the way, the second to last episode for The Acolyte. Will it get a boost in the end when people maybe binge watch it? But, it ended so poorly that at that point, nobody could defend it. I couldn't defend it, any longer. So I don't really know if there's going to be a binge bump for that show. By the way, some of you pointed out to me that Kathleen Kennedy was absent from D23 this weekend, with Dave Filoni representing the Star Wars brand. Now, hopefully, there's no serious personal reason that Kathleen Kennedy could not attend. But, hopefully barring that, it is a very interesting development. All right, so over on Netflix's charts, they are low on content right now. And what they do have leaked. They suffered a massive leak this past week with current and upcoming shows, like including Arcane, leaking online. A new SpongeBob movie was a very weak number 1, while with shows, very weak numbers here as well. This is nice for Wednesday's Emma Myers, though. It makes her seem like she's a commodity to the streaming service as well. But whoa, look at those numbers for Joe Rogan. Doesn't he have a hit podcast? I did see a lot of people tweeting about, it's interesting. This was the week before, he decided to make some political statements that his fans didn't like so much. So I'm not sure if that's part of it, but It seems that while he does very well in the podcasting space, when it comes to, streaming, of course, Joe Rogan does do video podcasts, but when it comes to the streaming space, he can't compete with Matt Rife or even Shane Gillis. Meanwhile, interestingly, I find this interesting, Bill Burr has successfully managed to walk the line between conservatives and liberals. He appeals to everyone, and he's going to Broadway. What a show that's going to be. I hope I can get tickets. The Broadway shows I'm excited about in 2025, talk about star power, still a thing, is this, and then also Othello with Denzel Washington and Jake Gyllenhaal. Neither of them have tickets on sale yet, but I've and they don't even have official websites. It's weird. Broadway is a very different space. Any Broadway fans out there? How do you make sure you get tickets for a Broadway show? There's no official fan alert that I've been able to find. I had to go on some sketchy websites and give them my email address. But interesting. They have all the stars, but they're still running it like it's an old school 1970s operation. All right, over on digital, on iTunes, it's the usual suspects here, same every week. But on that note, you got to give it up to Ungentlemanly Warfare, because it's still in the top 10 for basically at this point the entire summer. Henry Cavill, I think the jury's still very much out on him. Talk about a heated debate, because he's had some real flops, but then how do you explain this? We'll see how the upcoming Highlander does. I think he and Chad Stahelski are a very promising combo. And I'm glad to see that Horizon is still in the top 10. Come on, Horizon! Also, The Twister seems to be causing brand confusion, or did any of you actually mean to click on that? I find that hilarious. The Twisters. It's not free. You gotta pay for that still. All right, as for this coming weekend, was Disney right to move Alien Romulus from Hulu to theaters? A lot of you were like, the Predator Prey movie, right? You were like, this should have been in theaters. Well, now it's time to find out. It's interesting to me, the premium screens, some of the premium screens in New York are selling very well, but I gotta say, the non-premium screens, it's a ghost town. So I'm really curious to see how this movie performs. The review embargo lifts Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Unfortunately, I had a personal conflict come up, so I have to miss Monday's press screening. I'm sorry. So my coverage will start Thursday evening. I hope it's not too gross, or do I? All right, but it seems, it seems nobody cares, which is the worst thing that could happen to the movie. I'm really surprised. Let's see if it's able to get some momentum. I think it was a mistake to do, so many people are saying, the CW version of Alien. I think they should have put some adults in that movie. We'll find out. Skincare also opens in a handful of theaters with a handful of showtimes. What the heck is this? This is Saturday at the AMC Empire, which has 25 screens, yet this can only get 3 showtimes. And I saw the trailer in front of It Ends With Us. Couldn't believe the movie came out the next week. And I gotta tell you, the trailer looked really good. I was like, way to go, Elizabeth Banks, but now I'm not so sure. On digital, again, Twisters touches down on Tuesday, but also DC Animation's Watchmen Part 1. Just read the comic. I'm begging you. It's such a much better use of your time. Are you really that against reading a comic? It's like, please. I gotta tell you, some adaptations are wonderful, right? And they expand the audience. But the movie, the movie had some nice visuals, but now, and especially the state that DC Animation is in today, as a comic book fan who views comic books as an art form to a degree, I kind of find these adaptations offensive. So it's a little bit like what happened to Long Halloween. I'm like, just read the comic. All right, so, it's just so far superior. If they had a Long Halloween like The Godfather, which, by the way, the Long Halloween was based off of and modeled after, then we'd be talking. Boy, what happened to Francis Ford Coppola? Let's see what happens. Well, all right, so Hollywood's everything. The world's a crazy place, man. All right, so as for streaming movies, on Friday, speaking about crazy, Netflix has that Mark Wahlberg, Halle Berry movie, and they haven't advertised it at all. Did you know it was coming out? I was shocked when I was putting together what was coming out this week, and I had to double check. I was like, maybe that's wrong. So I went to Netflix's own website, and it is coming out on Friday. What a weird business plan. I just don't understand it. But they are, of course, changing the movie culture at Netflix. So this is kind of like the end of the previous era. All right, while with shows, Vince Vaughn is back, this time on Apple TV with the first 2 episodes of his new show dropping on Wednesday. I love Vince Vaughn. I watch Fred Claus every Christmas. I don't care what anyone says. That's a great movie. So quotable. Vince Vaughn is so quotable. And I actually was so excited to watch my screeners for this. And I have to say, I couldn't get past the first episode. I couldn't get through it because it's not Vince Vaughn. He's not quotable. He's not making jokes. I was like, who wants muted Vince Vaughn? I want Vince Vaughn hyped up on caffeine. I mean, you're better off watching his Hot Ones episode, which I thought was very enjoyable. Netflix, but so that's too bad. Maybe we'll see how bleak the rest of the summer gets. But I really didn't like the first half of the first episode. It pains me because I, again, am such a big Vince Vaughn fan. Netflix also has the documentary Worst Ex Ever, which I think should do very well for them. That's the kind of trashy content that's really, David Zaslav knows it. That's what Discovery is built on. I mean, it does very well on streaming. And then Emily in Paris and Bel Air both return on Thursday with new seasons. I was like, are either of these the final seasons? And it doesn't seem, at least not definitive. But we'll see. Those shows just keep going. I have a friend who watches Emily in Paris. I just can't do it. But I have a friend who watches it, and even they are like, I went to see This Is Us with them. It Ends With Us with them, actually. They didn't actually care for It Ends With Us either. I mean, they thought it was fine. We all respected it. Just wasn't for us. But I was like, Emily in Paris starts this week. And they're like, I'm over it. So we'll see. And that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what lessons do you think Hollywood should be learning from It Ends With Us, Borderlands, Deadpool and Wolverine, and the like? Share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.